Hello everyone. In this video, I will be talking about Kafka UI slash management tools. I will show you three different tools which are not vendor specific. So no matter where your Kafka cluster is hosted, you can use these tools. So first one is called Conduktor, and their official website, conduktor.io. And as you can see, it is Apache Kafka desktop client, right? So this tool, you can see this the screenshot here. I will actually show you. Obviously, you can download it from here. When you click it here, this is the pricing page, but let's actually open it, download page. So it's available on macOS, Windows, and Linux. I already downloaded it. So this tool is not free, and you can read obviously these different information. I will have this website linked in the description, but this is not free. They have different plans. They have free plan, which is for local development only. Proof of concept by developers. So this free plan is limited by one Kafka broker per cluster. Obviously, this is not a production setting. You will typically have more than one broker in a cluster. The authentication scheme is only plain text, so we don't have SSL or SSL authentication, and it has limited feature sets. But as we can see, as we will see, I will show you, it has quite many features even in a free plan. The next one is professional plan, but it is limited to 10 users only. And you can have unlimited brokers in the cluster. You can have SSL and SSL authentication and some other things. But if you have more than 10 users, you have to buy this enterprise plan and you need to contact them. So, as I said, this is a desktop client, so you need to download it. I already downloaded it, so let me actually open it. Conduktor, okay, Conduktor, okay, this one. Let's see. By the way, before we monitor Kafka cluster, we need to have Kafka broker available, right? So I am using Docker to run Kafka, and this is my Docker Compose file. I have a Zookeeper as a first service. You need Zookeeper, and I have Kafka broker here, and I have control center. For now, don't really pay attention to this control center. I will explain in later. For Kafka, I am using Confluent Docker images, and for Zookeeper, and also for control center. So I'm using all Confluent Docker images here. By the way, if you don't know how to run Kafka using Docker, I actually have a video about it, so you can watch it. It's actually very, very simple. You basically have this Docker Compose file, and you do Docker Compose up. So if we have Docker PS to list Docker running containers, we see that Kafka and Zookeeper are running. Okay, so let's open the Conduktor. When you install Conduktor and when you try to connect, like new Kafka cluster, for example, here, it will ask you about Bootstrap servers, Zookeeper, etc. You fill this information, and you basically connect to Kafka here. Let's connect. So first tab is overview. It basically gives you the overview of different things. You can see the overview of the brokers. We have a single broker because developer license or free license doesn't allow to have more than one broker. We have topics overview here with 52 topics. These are actually internal topics, and we have 112 partitions. we have consumer groups here and Kafka streams. So here are the detailed detailed information about each one of these. So let's go to the broker. We see that we have a one broker. We see the version here, and here we see the partition numbers and the size. I guess it's the size of the data. So here, if we go to the listener, we see more details, right? For example, advertised listeners, max idle. So basically all the configuration details that this broker has. We see that we have 112 partitions and the same number of replicas. Okay, let's go to the broker topics. It tells us that we have 52 topics and 112 partitions, but you don't really see the topics here. Why is that? So if you click this icon here, eye icon, you will see that this hide private topics is checked. So if we uncheck it, we will see all the topics. These topics are called private topics or internal topics. These are topics that Confluent Docker images created for us, and they are called internal topics. And we see here that, for example, this topic, consumer offsets, have 50 partitions. So if we click it here, we see the partition numbers, in-seq replicas and just replicas, and the leader is old one because we just have a single broker with ID 1. So this will be old 1. Okay, we see the size of the topic here. And what is this? Actually, if you point this, it should tell you what each individual column means. So it says the count of Kafka consumer group subscribed to the topic. So we see that, for example, for this topic, there is a one consumer group that is subscribed. Okay. So this one is, I think, last write. When was the last write? And this is the spread. And if you point here, it will explain what spread is. And it basically means that these partitions are on every broker. Since we just have a one broker, this is 100%. If we had, let's say, two brokers, and this partition was available only in single broker, then it would be 2. And it tells us basically how this topic is spread among the brokers. Okay, and if we click this icon, gear icon, it will basically gives us the detailed information about this topic. For example, this partition here, last write. If we have consumer groups, it will be presented here. We can go to configuration. This is a configuration of the broker, and you can see, how these configuration of the topic, and you can see how these topics are configured. We can actually create a topic here. Let's create it. So let's call it test. Just test. So partition let's put it 1 here. And we also can have these other advanced configurations listed here if we want, but let's just keep the defaults, and let's create a topic. Okay, so let me hide these private topics, and we see our topic here, which is a test topic. Let's go to test, and we have on the upper hand side, we have the consumer and the producer. So we can consume the data from this topic, and we can produce the data. Let's actually produce the data. Okay, we have the key here. Let's leave it empty, and we have the value. We can choose anything we want. This is the structure of the message. Let's keep it string, and let's say this is test message. we need to pick the topic that we want to produce the data. And I will say, okay, where is our test? Here is our test. And at the same time, we can open the consumer, by the way. So let me open the consumer and the producer side by side. Pick the topic to consume. Let's pick test and let's click start. So the messages should appear here. Let's produce the message, this message, and we should see it here. Send. And as you can see, we see the message here. So this means that our setup works as expected. We can actually create another message, second event or something like that, send, and we see the message here. So this is actually quite good features that you can consume and produce in the message directly within this desktop application, Conduktor. Here we see the partitions that we just have one partition. We see the configuration, how this topic is created. And we can also remove the topic if we want. And also we can export the messages in this topic to CSV or JSON format, right? Let's go to the consumers, and here it shows the consumer groups. Oops, yeah, consumer groups. We have 2 active consumer groups, and it's created by Control Center. So this Control Center that I started, which I will show you a little bit later. Let me close this. And we can go here and see the details. We see the total partitions, and this is the consumer, the partitions that this consumer group consumes from, topics and the partitions. Okay, let's go back. Now, this schema registry and Kafka Connect is grayed out because we use a free version and it's not available in free version. There are Kafka streams if we want to import topology, etc. Now, I'm not going to do it right now, but you can do this. KSQLDB is grayed out because, again, free plan. And you can also create, in Security tab, you can create access control lists for different things. And I'm not going to do it right now. And performance, this is, I guess, coming soon. So overall, it gives you quite many features. It gives you the overview of the brokers that you have with these configurations. It gives you the overview of the topics and the partitions of each topic. You can consume and produce the data, as we saw. It gives you the overview of the consumers, what groups you have, and partitions that and the topics they are subscribed to. You can have Kafka streams imported here, and you can create the access control lists. But again, this is a free plan, which is limited to a single broker in a cluster, which is obviously not a production-like setting. So if you want more, you should consider subscribing to these different plans. All right, the next tool that I want to show you is called Control Center by Confluent. And in the Docker Compose file that I showed you, I actually had this service listed here. So when I ran this Docker Compose up, it obviously started Control Center container, and we can see here that our Control Center container is running. And this is a sort of Kafka UI/management tool by Confluent. And it is exposed on 9021 port. So if we go to localhost 9021 here, it should display the cluster information. And it gives us the information about the cluster. As expected, we have one healthy cluster. So if we click it here, like in the Conduktor, the first tab is the overview. And there is not much information about the broker, but we see that we have 52 total topics. This is the connect and KSQL. Okay, let's go to brokers. We see that the broker ID is 1, but since nothing extraordinary is happening, it doesn't list much information here. But you can check out these different tabs. In the topics, it lists our topics. Now, pay attention that this is checked hide internal topics. Now in Conduktor, it was called private topics. Here is called internal topics. So same thing, basically. If we uncheck it, it will display all these internal / private topics. But we don't really care about those things. We care about our topic that we created, test, and we see that it has one partition. So let me actually go here. We see the configuration details. We can edit the settings, or we can see the full settings. We can see the schema here, but we don't have schema associated with this topic. And we can see the messages. So let me actually click this icon here. It says no new messages, but we should, I think, be able to consume. So we can, we can choose partition 0, and we consumed from the beginning. So we have 2 messages here that we produced. We have these 2 messages that we produced via Conduktor, right? So we can also see the messages here in this UI. But the thing is that you cannot produce in a topic. We could produce in a topic in the Conduktor here, but using Control Center, you can only consume from the topic. You don't have an option to produce. In the Connect, we don't have any Connect clusters. Same goes with KSQL-DB. Consumers, we have 2 consumers, as we saw in Conduktor also. And these are the different, basically, topics that this consumer consumes from. And this is the each individual consumer which are part of the consumer group. And these are the topics that they consume from. So we can view here the consumer groups, each individual consumers in those consumer groups, and you can also view which partitions and topics they are consuming from. Replicators. Replicator basically means that you can replicate a topic from one cluster to another. Replication means you will have the same topic with the same data, with the same configuration, basically everything the same, identical topics in different clusters. And this feature is not available in Conduktor, by the way. And we have a cluster settings here. This is just a general information like the cost, the ID, and the name. So quite general information. By the way, when we start the control center via Docker image, it comes with a developer license. So if you click this icon here, you can see about control center license, and it says developer license. Now, Confluent has different types of license. First one is developer license that comes by default, and it is also limited to a single broker per cluster. And it also says that this is not a production setting. Obviously, we'll have more than one broker in a cluster. So it's, again, this is also for proof of concept. It has trial license, which expires in 30 days. It has enterprise license. And by the way, Control Center falls under this category, enterprise license category, and it has community license. Now, if you want to upgrade to enterprise license, you can do it within the UI purchase license here. And the thing is that it doesn't really display the price ranges, and I was a little bit confused by this. You should actually fill this form, click submit, and their team will contact you to evaluate your use case and give you price. So I actually did fill this the form, and I had a little chat with their team. And the thing is that since I'm not using their cloud, it's hard for them to give me the exact price for just using Control Center. So you need to figure out by yourself how much it would cost you, because it's not a standard thing if you are not using their platform. If you just want to use one component in this, and in this case it is Control Center, it's a little bit non-standard request. So I guess the price would depend on your use case. If they tell me the price, I will obviously update the video and will tell you the price. But again, it is very, very individual, as they told me. So now let's actually compare the Control Center and Conduktor feature by feature. Now they both have the similar features. They give you the overview of the cluster and the brokers, and obviously topics. Now in Conduktor you can produce to a topic. In Control Center you cannot do that. You can only consume from the topic, right? But in Control Center you can have KSQL a DB cluster and Connect cluster. In Conduktor, it is actually grayed out, so it's not included in a free plan. Schema registry is also grayed out, and in Control Center, as we saw, you can have schema registry associated with the message and displayed here. But in Conduktor, you can create access control lists here, so it gives you security features. In Control Center, there is no such thing, right? But it has replicator that you can replicate a topic from one cluster to another. So it's really hard to say, obviously, which one is better. You have to evaluate by yourself, and depending on your use case, depending on which features you need, you have to make the choice by yourself. The subscription plans in Conduktor is clear, right? It's basically 3 plans, and you know the approximate pricing. Obviously, you don't know the price for enterprise. They will give you, I guess, the specific price. But if you are using the second plan, the price is clear. In case of Control Center, pricing model is not clear if you are not using their platform already. If you just want to use the only Control Center, you need to fill this form, submit, and they will contact you and evaluate your use case and give you the price depending on your use case. So the final tool, the third tool that I want to show you, is called Kafdrop. It is a open source project, and this is the link to the project. And in the section, as you can see, it is a Kafka web UI. So it is actually a pretty good tool, which I have been using in production, and the price is free. Generally speaking, open source doesn't mean free, but in this case, It means free because they say that it is free. And obviously, to make sure that everything is okay, you can check the license here. And they have Apache license, and they permission is commercial use. So you can use this tool in production without paying anything. It's completely free, right? I highly suggest to read all this information. It is written in Java, so you can run it like a jar, but I'm a huge Docker user, so I like running things in Docker. So they actually have a Docker image here, which by the way has 10 million downloads. So this tool is really, really popular, and you can check out how to run it in the Docker. It's actually very, very simple. As you remember, I had this Docker Compose file where I ran Zookeeper, Kafka, and Control Center. So I actually added Kafdrop as a service. And as you can see, it is exposed on 9,000 here. And this is the Kafka, basically how it can connect to Kafka. And you specify the name of the container. In this case, it is Kafka, name of the container, and the port. And this is 29092. And you should have this port exposed here, obviously. So in Kafka listeners, you should have this exposed. So since this is the service in the same Docker network, they can talk with each other without any problems. I actually ran it, and we can see in Docker PS, it also lists Kafdrop. It generated this name automatically. I didn't specify any name. And as you can see, it is exposed on port 9000. So let me actually go here. So localhost 9000, and it lists the more or less similar information. So we have the cluster overview, what is the Bootstrap servers, how many topics we have, how many partitions we have. Here we have the information about the broker, which we can go and see in details that, how many topics we have in this broker, how many partitions we have, what is the port, what is the host, etc. And we have here the access control lists. Obviously, in our case, it is empty because we don't have any access control list. And we have the topics. We can search the topics here as we want. We can actually create a topic here also. Let me create test lecture test topic. Number of partition 1, replicator 1, create, go back, and let's search it. So this topic test we created beforehand, and this topic we created right now, and let's go and check out. So you can delete the topic. It lists the configurations if the configuration is not standard. So if it's not default, it will list here. We have general overview here, and we have partition details. So you can actually go to each specific partition. By the way, we have consumer groups here. So if we have consumers and consumer groups that are connected or that consume from this topic, they will be listed here. So this is the information about the partition. You can choose the partition here. Since we have just a single partition, it's just one entry. You can go to specific offset. This is the number of messages. We have the key format and the message format. If we consume it, obviously we don't see any message because we don't have any message in this topic and in this partition, right? But we do have a message in in different topic. So let me actually go back and search test. As you remember, we produced two messages in the test topic. So we have a single partition, and if I click view messages, I see these two different messages that we produced in Conduktor. And as you can see in the app name, it says Conduktor, right? We can actually go to a specific offset. So we saw a specific message at that offset. So I definitely recommend to play with different things here. What else we can do? Yeah, pretty much that is it. As you can see, it is quite limited feature-wise. For example, in Conduktor, we could produce in a topic. We could have Kafka streams and security. We can create access control lists, for example, from here. Here we can just see it if we have access control lists. In Control Center, we could have Connect cluster, KSQL DB, Replicator. In Kafdrop, we don't have it. So comparing to Conduktor and Control Center, Kafdrop is limited feature-wise. But it is completely free. You can have multiple brokers in a cluster. In Conduktor and Control Center, you cannot do that. You need to upgrade. So which one should you use? Now, in my opinion, if you are already using Confluence Cloud, their platform, I guess it makes sense to use Control Center, right? Because you are already using their platform, right? If you don't use their platform, you might consider using Conduktor, but keep in mind that if you want these extra features, you have to upgrade to a paid plan, right? And also the free plan is limited to a single broker, and it's not really a production like setting because you should have more than one broker in a cluster. So at the end of the day, I think if you use Conduktor in production, you have to at least use this professional plan, right? And Kafdrop is completely free, but it is limited to a feature-wise. So finally, which one to use? It really depends on the use case. If you don't use Confluence platform, I would suggest to start from Kafdrop, right? And if you hit the limitation, then you might consider using Conduktor or Control Center. That's how I would do it. All right, this was all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.